Welcome to Echoes of Valor X. Today we uncover the diary not of a soldier in a trench, but of a hunter in the sky.
We are surrounded, not on the ground, but in the air. Below, the city burns, turned into a skeleton. Above, packs of Messerschmitts. The Führer promised his aces an easy walk, but today, one of them is burning, and he doesn't even suspect who pulled the trigger.
Berlin, 1942. Goebbels' propaganda claims the Soviet Air Force is destroyed, that Russian pilots are walking dead men. But in the sky over the Volga, a ghost appears, a plane with a white lily on its side. The Germans call her the witch. Her own call her sister. This is not the story of generals or maps. This is the voice of one girl, just 21 years old. She dyed her hair with peroxide, cut the fur from her boots for a collar, and shot down 12 German aces. Hope drains away. Faith collapses. Only the sky remains. World War II was a meat grinder, but Stalingrad was its center. Here, the average life expectancy of a soldier was 24 hours. For a fighter pilot, barely any longer.
Every sortie is a lottery. You take off and don't know if you'll return for dinner, or if you'll become a black stain on the scorched steppe. We don't fear death, no? We fear burning alive.
Her name was Lydia Litvyak. In official reports, junior lieutenant. In legends, the White Lily of Stalingrad. While the world knew of the night witches who bombed Germans in plywood biplanes under the cover of darkness, Lydia chose a different path, the path of the fighter, the lone wolf. A woman in the cockpit of a fighter plane in 1942 is nonsense. It is an error in the system. Men looked at her with mockery, enemies with contempt. But very soon mockery turned to fear. Today we trace her path from a Moscow flying club to a nameless grave in the Donetsk steppe. The story of how a fragile girl became the most effective female ace in the history of warfare, and how history forgot her for 40 years. Lydia was not born for war. She was born in Moscow on the day of the Jewish New Year, small, blonde, with a quiet voice. But inside her was a core of steel that neither hunger nor fear could break.
At 14, I went up into the sky for the first time. At 15, I was already flying solo. Mother cried. Father was proud. I knew one thing. The earth is too cramped. The sky, that is where true freedom lies. But freedom has a price.
1941. The Wehrmacht rolls toward Moscow. Marina Raskova, the legendary aviatrix, forms female aviation regiments. Lydia runs to the recruitment office. But they don't take her. Not enough flight hours. What does an ordinary person do? They surrender. What does Lydia do? She falsifies her documents. She added 100 flight hours to her log. This was her first victory. Not over the Germans, but over bureaucracy. She was enlisted in the 586th Fighter Aviation Regiment, an all-female regiment.
Lilka was strange. We all cut our hairs like boys, wore baggy uniforms. But her? She tailored her uniform to fit her figure. She sewed a fur collar onto her flight suit. She brought wildflowers into the cockpit. We laughed. Are you going to war or on a date? She answered, even at war, one must remain a woman.
But behind the flowers and blonde hair lay cold calculation. Instructors noticed. She feels the plane as an extension of her own body. She sees the air. Autumn 1942. Orders from Berlin echo through the ranks of the Luftwaffe. Take Stalingrad at any cost. Soviet command makes a desperate decision. The best female pilots are sent into the furnace. To the 437th Fighter Regiment. To the men.
They met us coldly. The regiment commander looked at us like baggage. Women? In fighters? You'll burn here in 3 days. He didn't know that in a week, he would be shaking my hand.
September 1942. Stalingrad is hell. The sky over the city is black with planes. Junkers bomb the crossings. Messerschmitts hunt everything that moves. September 13th. Lydia Litvyak flies her second combat sortie over Stalingrad.
I saw a Junkers. It moved confidently, arrogantly, like a master. There was no fear, only cold in my stomach. I got on his tail, closer, even closer, 50 meters. I pulled the trigger, traces stitched through his engine. He flared up like a match.
It was her first personal victory, but the day was not over. In the same battle, she spots a German fighter, an Me-109, getting on the tail of her commander, Raisa Belyaeva. Lydia is running out of fuel, ammo is low, but she does what no one expects. She throws her yak into a head-on attack, straight at the German. It is a game of chicken. Who will turn first? The German ace, seeing the Soviet fighter rushing at him, cannot hold his nerve. He jerks the stick, exposing the belly of his plane. Lydia gives a short burst, smoke, fire, earth. The pilot of the Messerschmitt managed to bail out. He was taken prisoner. This was not just an ordinary pilot, this was a baron, a German ace from the elite Udette wing, a holder of the Knight's Cross with 30 victories. At the interrogation, he demanded to see the one who shot him down. He thought it was a famous Soviet ace.
We brought Lydia to him, small, in an oil-stained flight suit, blonde hair escaping from under her helmet. The German turned purple. He laughed, thought we were mocking him. This girl? Impossible. Then Lydia, through a translator, reminded him of the details of the fight, how he came from below, how she cut him off on the turn. The Baron fell silent. He took off his gold watch and wanted to give it to her. She pushed his hand away.
I do not take gifts from enemies. I only take their lives.
On that day, a legend was born. The men in the regiment stopped looking at her as a woman. They looked at her as an ace. On the fuselage of her plane, they painted a white lily. Although botanists would say it was a narcissus, for the soldiers she became the white lily. For the Germans, she became a priority target. Over radio intercepts, they heard the screams of German controllers, "Achtung, Litvyak, the white lily is in the sky." It was a warning of death. But war is not only hatred. It is also desperate love. Lydia falls in love. Alexei Solomatin, an ace just like her. Their romance was short and furious, like a dogfight. They flew in a pair, covered each other, dreamed of what would come after.
May 21st, 1943, the day the sun went out. Alyosha crashed, right before my eyes, at the airfield. A training fight, mechanical failure. He fell 100 meters from the parking area. I ran to the wreckage, but there was only fire.
After Alexei's death, something in her broke. Or perhaps it hardened to the limit. She stopped fearing death entirely. She sought it. She began to fly free hunting missions, the most dangerous type of combat work where a pilot goes behind enemy lines alone, without orders to kill.
The pain does not leave. It turns into rage. I see crosses on wings and I see Alyosha's face. I will shoot them down as long as I breathe. The ring closes.
Her effectiveness grew at a frightening pace. She was wounded 3 times. They offered her a transfer to the rear, to become an instructor, to save the life of a hero. She refused. She escaped from the hospital to return to the cockpit, because on the ground ghosts waited for her. In the sky, there were only enemies. August 1st, 1943, the 4th sortie of the day. Imagine the fatigue when hands tremble and eyes sting from strain. A group of Soviet fighters returns from a mission. They are out of ammo, out of fuel.
We were heading home, and suddenly a pack fell out of the clouds. 8 Messerschmitts. It was an ambush. They were waiting specifically for us. Lydia didn't see them. I screamed over the radio, "Lilia! Behind you! Lilia!" But it was too late.
Her plane vanished into the clouds. No one saw her again. No explosion, no parachute, just silence. She was 21 years old. On the ground they waited. A day, 2, a week. But no miracle came. And here begins the second tragedy of Lydia Litvyak, the tragedy of oblivion.
Missing in action.
For Soviet command, this phrase was a brand. Missing in action could mean captured or traitor. Her, a heroine, the pride of the nation, was not awarded the title of Hero of the Soviet Union posthumously. They began to erase her name. It took 36 years of searching. Only in 1979 did search teams find a mass grave in the village of Dmitrovka. Among the remains of unknown soldiers they discovered a girl, a head wound, small stature. Locals told how in 1943 a Soviet plane fell, and at the controls was a blonde female pilot. Justice triumphed only in 1990. The president of the USSR posthumously awarded her the title of Hero of the Soviet Union. She returned from non-existence. William Hoffman Hunt wrote in his diary, "In this war, we lost our soul. Lydia Litvyak lost her life, but she kept her soul. She proved that even in hell, where steel melts from fire, the human spirit and the female spirit is harder than any metal. If you want to hear more forgotten stories, not of victory but of survival, loss, and the true cost of war, subscribe to Echoes of Valor X. Because war never truly ends on the battlefield. It echoes.